Hello, and welcome to Laura Learn English. Today's story is emotional, inspiring, and full of hope, courage, and unexpected kindness. It will also help you improve your English listening and vocabulary through simple conversations and real-life emotions. As you listen, try to imagine every scene, every expression, and every feeling. This is the story of a single mother who lost almost everything. My name is Maya. And the stranger whose kindness gave her a new life. My name is Maya. I am 33, mother to 3 daughters, Grace, Ava, and little Rosie. Years ago, my husband Derek left one morning while Rosie was still a baby, his side of the bed empty, his phone disconnected. He never came back, never called. Years later, we never heard from Derek again, and slowly, that silence stopped hurting quite as much. I cried for weeks, then stood up, because crying would not feed my daughters. We moved into a small, cold apartment in Cedar Falls, and without a college degree, I found work cleaning houses, alone, with only a bucket, a mop, and a strong will to keep going. Some clients were kind. Others barely looked at me. One man refused to pay after 8 full hours of work. I cried that night where my daughters could not hear me, then smiled again by morning. One Saturday, Grace walked into the kitchen while I was counting the little money left on the table. Our school is going to the Science Museum next month, she said quietly. It costs $30. Do you have to go? I asked. No, she said quickly, forcing a smile, then turned away so I would not see her tears. That evening, I took another cleaning job, even after 6 days of work already that week. When I finally handed her the $30, her eyes went wide with joy. She never learned that I had skipped meals to give her that money. And I never planned to tell her. Winter arrived early that year, and one rainy December evening, walking my daughters home from a late job, everything about our lives was about to change in a single terrifying second. The rain fell heavily that evening as I held my daughters' hands, Grace on my left, Rosie's small fingers curled inside mine, Ava close beside us. The streets were nearly empty, streetlights reflecting off the wet road like golden ribbons. I felt strangely nervous as we stepped toward the crosswalk. Then headlights appeared out of nowhere. A horn screamed through the silence, tires sliding across the icy road. I turned toward my daughters just as everything exploded into noise, pushing them as hard as I could toward the sidewalk before pain tore through my body and darkness swallowed everything. I woke slowly to soft beeping sounds, the smell of medicine, a bright white ceiling above me. My leg burned. My girls, I whispered, barely able to speak. A gentle-eyed nurse rushed in. They're safe, she said softly. Minutes later, my 3 daughters rushed through the door, wrapping themselves around me, and I cried, not from pain, but from relief that they were alive. A doctor explained my injuries later, a broken leg, 2 broken ribs, and a serious head injury. Surgery required, months of recovery ahead. I can't stop working, I told him, my voice breaking. My daughters need me." He looked truly sorry, but firm. "Your job right now is to heal." Then a police officer arrived. The crash had knocked down part of a stone wall outside a jewelry store, and the owner wanted $20,000 in damages. "I don't even have 200, I whispered, my whole world suddenly feeling impossibly small. In the days that followed, neighbors I barely knew began quietly showing up with soup, blankets, and groceries, and one young reporter's visit was about to change everything, in a way I never expected. 3 days passed. I stared out the hospital window every morning, wondering how we would survive once I was discharged, with no savings, a mountain of bills, and a body too broken to clean a single house. Then, one quiet afternoon, a young reporter visited my room, asking gently if she could share my story. "I don't want pity," I told her. "It isn't about pity," she said kindly. "It's about hope." I finally agreed. The article appeared online the next morning, a photo of me holding my daughter's hands, a headline about a mother who risked everything to save her children. Within hours, thousands of people shared it. Messages poured in from strangers, encouragement, prayers, tears. Then donations began arriving. $5, $20, $100, each one with a small note attached. "Stay strong. A mother's love deserves a miracle." Within a week, the total covered several months of rent, and for the first time since the accident, I finally breathed a little easier. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning, my phone rang from an unknown number. "I read your story," a calm male voice said. "I'd like to help." I became cautious immediately. "We've already received donations," I said carefully. "I know," he replied, "but I want to do more." "Why?" I asked. There was a long pause. "Because years ago, someone helped my mother when we had nothing," he finally said. "I've never forgotten it." I believe it's my turn now. Before I could ask his name, the call ended. I stared at the phone for a long time, uneasy. 2 days later, my hospital door opened, and a young man in a navy coat walked in, carrying flowers and a small box of drawing pencils. He remembered Ava loved drawing, because the article had mentioned it once, in a single sentence. His name was Aaron Cole, and the fact that he already knew Ava loved drawing, from one small line in a news article, was something I could not stop thinking about. "So it was you," I said. He nodded. "I promised I'd come." His handshake was gentle, not proud, simply kind. He greeted Ava warmly, mentioning her drawings, and knelt beside little Rosie, who wrapped her arms around his neck without fear. "I read the article closely," he explained simply, smiling. "It mentioned all three of you." Then he placed a closed folder on my table, without opening it right away. "There's something in here I want to explain first," he said carefully. "Your medical bills have been paid," he said. I stared at him, certain I had misheard. "There must be some mistake," I said. There isn't, he replied. This was the largest gift I have ever given anyone, he said quietly. I saved carefully for a long time before I felt ready to help someone this way. Why? I asked, tears already falling. He looked out the window for a long moment. When I was 12, my father died, and my mother raised me completely alone. Some winters, we barely had food. Then one year, a stranger quietly paid our rent. We never even learned his name. My mother cried the entire night and told me something I never forgot. When life becomes kind to you, become kind to someone else. I've been trying to do that ever since, he said softly, his voice catching slightly on the last word. For a moment, a small doubt crossed my mind. What does he actually want from us? I wondered quietly. But watching him laugh gently with Rosie, expecting nothing in return, that doubt slowly disappeared completely. Recovery, I would soon learn, was its own long and painful story, one that tested every bit of strength I had left before anything else could truly begin. Learning to walk again was harder than I expected. Some mornings, the pain nearly convinced me to give up entirely. But every afternoon, my daughters visited, cheering each small step. You walked 5 steps today, Rosie announced proudly one day. You'll walk 100 soon. At home, Grace quietly started cleaning the apartment without being asked, folding laundry, washing dishes, trying to carry weight she was far too young to carry. One evening, I found Ava sitting beside my bed, drawing silently while I cried, sliding the paper toward me without a word, a small picture of our whole family standing together under a bright sun. I taped it to the wall above my bed that same night. Weeks passed, and worry crept back, and even so. Rent would be due again soon, and my saved donations were shrinking steadily. I said nothing to the girls, not wanting to frighten them, but some nights I lay awake doing the same tired math over and over. Then, the day I was finally released from the hospital, Aaron arrived to drive us home, but took a different road entirely. This isn't the way home, I said, confused. I know, he replied, smiling in a way that made my heart beat strangely fast. There's somewhere I'd like to show you first. 20 minutes later, the car stopped in front of a small house with blue shutters and a garden full of flowers, and Aaron handed me a single silver key that would change our lives completely. I don't understand, I said, staring at the key in my hand. Go ahead, he said gently. Inside was a warm living room, sunlight through the windows, 3 small bedrooms upstairs, one with pink curtains and a small bed already waiting. Whose house is this? I asked, my voice shaking. Yours, he said simply. I froze completely. I can't accept this, I whispered. You can, he said. You deserve somewhere safe to raise your daughters. I fell to my knees despite my healing leg, crying harder than I ever had, my daughters wrapping themselves around me. We have a home, Rosie whispered through her own tears. Yes, I answered. We finally have a home, that evening, once the girls were finally asleep in their new rooms. I sat with Aaron on the porch step, still overwhelmed. "This all still feels like a dream," I said quietly. He smiled, looking out at the quiet street. "Good dreams are allowed too, Maya," he said. "You don't have to keep waiting for something to go wrong." Months later, over tea in our new kitchen, Aaron asked what I would truly love to do if money were never a problem. I smiled sadly. "I've always dreamed of opening a bakery, like my own mother once had, fresh bread every Sunday, filling the whole house with that smell." "Then let's go shopping tomorrow," he said simply. I believed the hardest days were finally behind us. I was wrong. The bakery's first weeks would test our family in a completely different way. I imagined the bakery would open its doors to instant success. I had no idea the real story of Maya's family bakery was only just beginning, slowly, quietly, one difficult morning at a time. Local business owners helped us find a small shop, donated ovens, painted walls. Ava painted a colorful sign reading, "Maya's Family Bakery." On opening morning, I baked everything I knew and waited. Only 3 customers came that entire first day. The second week stayed just as quiet, shelves still half full by closing time, and doubt crept back into my chest again. Then, one afternoon, a customer took a photo of Rosie handing out free samples with her gap-toothed smile, and posted it online with a short, kind story about us. By the following weekend, a small line had formed outside our door before opening. Shelves emptied by lunchtime, and they kept emptying, week after week after that. Years passed. The bakery became one of the most beloved places in Cedar Falls. Grace grew into a caring teenager still dreaming of helping animals. Ava's little drawing still hung above my bed, now joined by dozens more taped around our kitchen. Little Rosie still hugged every single customer who let her. One evening, Aaron stood outside, looking up at the sign. "You did this," he said. "No," I corrected gently, "we did this." He shook his head. "I only opened a door. You were the one brave enough to walk through it." I thought back, standing there, to the woman I once was, counting coins on a kitchen table, terrified of a $30 museum trip, certain that kindness like this only happened to other people. That woman could never have imagined this bakery, this home, these 3 daughters laughing behind the counter. She only knew how to keep going, one difficult day at a time, and it turned out that was enough. If you are facing your own darkest night right now, please remember this. Kindness is never wasted, and even after the hardest winter, the sun always finds its way back.